Well, good morning and happy Easter, and what a strange and interesting Easter it is. I can't tell you how much I miss doing this class with you in person, and I'm so grateful that we have this opportunity to be together online. Welcome to those of you who are on Facebook with us. You can always jump over into the Zoom room to make a comment, share, ask a question. And for those of you who are in the Zoom room, don't forget that you can raise your hand and Ryan will bring you in, or make a chat. You can chat on Facebook as well. And so what an interesting opportunity it is for us to be together on this glorious Easter morning, all in our own homes, with the opportunity to recognize how completely connected we are. Technology these days is a perfect representation of the fact that we're actually connected, even though we feel separate. We feel isolated in our own bodies, in our own little worlds. We feel like we're just all here on our own. And it's not true, right? Just like we can reach out with technology, with all the different ways in which we can connect to people all over the world, we are not separate, and we are actually not isolated. There actually is an infinite reality that we're a part of. This infinite reality is the truth of life itself. And there is a deep truth in the mystical tradition, the mystical understanding about the omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence of the One. Now, all three of those words have what word in them? Omni. And what does omni mean? But everywhere. Everywhere, all inclusive, all totality. I mean, all the different ways that we can define the word omni. No, nothing left out, no place it's not, nothing left out, right? And so the idea of oneness is the bedrock. It is the absolute fabric of reality itself. And of course, quantum physics is teaching us that. It all comes out of the quantum field somehow, and it's all intimately and infinitely connected. Well, connected isn't even the right word. Connected means you take two things and you put them together, right? One, inextricably part of the whole. Nothing actually separate. And so this idea is really fundamental as we finish up this chapter in the Science of Mind on prayer. We're on page 153. We're at the end of this chapter. And of course, when we say prayer, we mean spiritual mind treatment, an affirmative prayer that aligns us with spiritual truth and allows us to set and create a creative intention and speak a creative word that we absolutely expect that the universal law of attraction, the law of cause and effect, will bring into manifestation. And we will experience it in our life. So this last section is a little bit interesting, and it's entitled, Prayer is Its Own Answer. Prayer is its own answer. Well, if prayer was its own answer, we should demonstrate instantly, shouldn't we? And the minute we'd said a prayer, it should immediately be answered. It should immediately appear, shouldn't it? And actually, that actually is the point. And so I want you to listen to this very first sentence. Cause and effect are but two sides of thought, and spirit, being all, is both cause and effect. Let me read that again. Cause and effect are but two sides of thought, and spirit, being all, is both cause and effect. Now, let me ask you, how many of us are used to thinking of, well, there's cause, and then there's effect? Something is set in motion, a prayer, an intention, an affirmation, a visualization, or, quite frankly, some negative emotion that just really runs rampant. Something is set into motion in consciousness, and then out here somewhere, the effect is going to happen somewhere along the line. as if they were two separate things. And we still suffer from the illusion that there is a spiritual reality and then there's a physical reality. That there is a spiritual nature and then there is a human nature. But the reality is that these are two sides of the same coin. That without effect, there is no cause. And without cause, there is no effect. And they are simultaneous. They are simultaneously happening in the, how do we say this? They're simultaneously happening in the reality, the fabric of the universe itself. Now, what's the difference? The difference is that in cause, there's no time and space, right? Cause is in the absolute, so everything is always here and now. It's eternal, and it's always present, in the present moment, always here and now, right? Because the intangible reality of the causal, oh God, it's always so hard to talk about, right? Because we instantly start separating, so we know that we're just using language to point at something. So cause lives in the realm of the intangible, absolute reality, and there is no time or space in the intangible, absolute reality. Where does effect live? Well, in the tangible reality of space and time. And so it is this very fact that gives us the illusion that these two things are separate, that there's somehow a gap between the two, and that our prayer, our affirmation, our visualization, our spiritual mind treatment is bridging the gap. Right? We're going to bridge the gap between spirit and matter, between spirituality and the human condition. This is completely false. This is not what we're doing at all. What we're doing is essentially, I guess an analogy could be, what we're doing is we're throwing a rock into the pond. What happens? There are ripples. The ripples are inextricably linked to the rock hitting the water. There's nothing that has to start. There's no gap that the pond goes, oh wait, a rock just fell in. What am I supposed to do? Oh, right, I'm supposed to ripple. There's no separation between these two activities. The ripple is the rock landing in the pond. I don't know how else to, I know it's always about the words, right? So think of these analogies that help us understand that when we are doing our work in consciousness, essentially we are beginning a ripple. And that ripple moves from the intangible into the tangible reality with no gap. There's nothing that it has to overcome. There's nothing that it has to connect. There's nothing that it has to bridge. Once the ripple has been started, the ripple is going to move, right? The pond doesn't go, oh wait, I'm only going to ripple twice, and then the ripple just keeps going and going and going and going. Yeah. So we can think about this. You know, it's the ancient koan, the Zen koan. If a tree falls in the forest, is there a sound? Of course, there are vibrations that are set up. Unequivocally, there are vibrations that are set up. The question is whether there's an ear to hear it, whether somebody is receiving it or seeing it, right? But the frequency of the noise and the ripple that noise is creating on whatever the audio frequencies, that's happening. That is happening. And so it's the same thing here. Thomas Troward says this. He says, when the end is secured in mind, the means to the end are also secured. That's a part of this idea that cause and effect are both spiritual realities. Effect isn't, oh, over there in the physical reality, and that's just the human condition, and that's just something over there, right? Yeah. All right, so let's stop there for a minute. And this is so important. This is so important because we're actually not trying to convince the law. We're not trying to convince God. We're not trying to change Spirit's mind. We're not trying to coerce the law into something different. And we're certainly not wishing, hoping, wondering, pleading if the outcome is going to happen. We're not asking for a favor. We're not proving our goodness. Look, I meditated this morning. Look, I'm doing my spiritual mind treatment. I'm see how spiritual I am. I should have my demonstration. We're understanding and using principles. And the fundamental principle is this idea that the only difference between cause and effect is that cause is the universal. Cause is in the absolute intangible portion of reality, if you so want to say it, and effect is its corresponding thing, the corresponding thing that's happening in the tangible space-time continuum. But they are mutual. Well, I don't know what that word is. What is that word? I don't know what that word is. So maybe you know what that word is. All right, so we're going to stop here and we're going to see who has comments, sharings, questions. Ryan, let's turn to whoever is out there in the room.
Would you describe that as maybe being symbiotic?
Oh, that's exactly the word I was thinking about. Symbiotic, that is great. That is exactly the word, right? They're symbiotic. Ralph Waldo Emerson uses the word corresponding. They're symbiotic and corresponding. Like even my two hands together, it's like, you know, it's as if these are two separate things that come together, but look, it's all my body. They look like they're separate, like it's two different hands, but it's all one. It's still, right? This is cause, this is effect. It's all part of the whole. And they're simultaneous, instantly true. Now, the way that the effect manifests is through the space-time continuum. Space and time, which may imply that something can instantly be rearranged. We can rearrange the subatomic particles. We can instantly have the quarks and electrons wink into existence in a new place when we're talking about a physical appearance of something. But it also means that some things grow over space and time, even though in the absolute it's fully formed, right? You don't plant an acorn and expect it tomorrow to have a fully formed oak tree. There is space and time in the unfolding of the effect in a lawful manner that is called, anyway, we won't go there right now. So, all right, so I saw another hand, Ryan.
Yeah, so in talking about this cause and effect, why is it that people get so disconnected from this actually happening? I mean, for instance, you see people out in the world, let's say, having a bad habit. What keeps them in that motivation? What keeps them knowing that?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, let's look at the word bad habit. What is a habit? A habit is an unconscious, automatic way of being or behaving. It is simply rote, learned or experienced behavior that has been laid down in our brains, and without conscious awareness, That's what a habit is. It is unconscious, automatic, mental or physical activity. And the reason that we get stuck in it is because it's a habit. What we want to do is use the fact that we are designed to run on habits to create the habits that are in alignment with the spiritual truth, that are good habits, so that we can rely on them running us as opposed to our bad habits. Brian?
Yeah, so we actually have somebody who has a question, so shout out Connie. Connie, if you want to go ahead and just unmute yourself, you can.
Hi, Connie.
Hi, thank you, and good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My question is, in spiritual mind treatment, is our belief a part of the cause?
That is a great question, Connie, and I would say the answer to that is twofold. There is no question that it helps to believe in the possibility of the outcome. Our ability to imagine and then to describe to ourselves what the outcome might look like or feel like really helps cement in our consciousness the cause. However, I would say that even more importantly than that is our belief that there is a law of cause and effect, that we can use it, that we can align ourselves with spiritual truth, that we are the place where the universe is waking up to its co-creative power as individualized, and that is part of what we're doing. And so our belief, I mean, sometimes we really talk about, oh, you have to feel it and feel the end result and feel the outcome, and then that creates a really powerful cause. This is true. But I'll tell you that we can do spiritual mind treatment for things that we can't quite fully imagine yet. We can't maybe all together believe that we can be that or see that. But we can so profoundly have deep conviction in the process itself, the creative process itself, that we know that when we speak our word and we understand that we are using a law, that it must manifest. Now, for me, a great example of this is all this technology that we're using and all this computer stuff that's going on and all the ways that it works and operates. I must admit that I do not understand all of that. We've had some interesting stuff. A couple weeks ago, we blew up a switcher box in our network. I have no idea what that means. Good enough, there are people, Ryan and Shane, who do actually know what that means, which is really great. I don't know exactly how all of that works, but what I know is that it does work. And we're able to sit here, you in your home, me here, we're able to sit here and do this. And I don't have to be able to imagine what all is transpiring or taking place so that you can sit there and I can sit here. But I have deep belief in the process, in that this is actually possible. Does that make sense to you? So that is the most important belief that we have to have. Ryan?
Yeah, so I just want to read this comment that Dave Lopez, it's really actually a question.
Hi, Dave.
So the degree of our awareness of the laws of cause and effect corresponds to the degree that we are aware that we are the creators of our reality, or at least the future realities, since we might be still living in our effects of past causes.
Yes, that is a great way of saying it. Right? And so in the science of mind, we talk about the conviction and the fire that is needed in a spiritual mind treatment in a prayer. And it is the conviction and the fire in the process as much or even more so than in the end result. Remember, we talked about it last week, the difference between an argumentative treatment and a realization treatment, or a mental treatment and a spiritual treatment. In the realization and spiritual treatment, we are already in in the state of consciousness of the end result. We can see it, feel it, touch it, taste it. And our spiritual mind treatment is really just building a deeper awareness of it and an acceptance of it. And we're in that swirl, and it's lovely and it's beautiful, and we can see ourselves, giving the presentation perfectly, or having, a lovely relationship or money or whatever it is, right? In the argumentative treatment, we may be having trouble seeing that, but we know how it works. And so by God, we are going to use the laws in a very deliberate and consistent manner so that the end result is as we want or expect. And that is so crucial, which is why we spend so much time on the theory of our understanding of the nature of reality, how it works, what the laws are, where the creative impulse comes in, what we can trust and have faith in, how this all works, so that we can use it, especially in the difficult times, especially in the times when we're not sure how it's going to work out. Like right now, who knows? When is it all going to be lifted? How's this all going to play out? Well, what we know for sure is that when we live in alignment with Spirit, and we are doing our spiritual work, that we are protected and healthy and safe, that we are prosperous, that we are contributing in whatever manner we ourselves can contribute. We see that for as many people as we can imagine. We see that moving into our life and into our leadership and into, right? Do you see, we may not see the end result. I don't actually know what that looks like, but I know how to do a spiritual mind treatment. I know how to pray, and I know how the universe works. And so that gives me a measure of not only comfort, but profound belief that every single time I do that, I am participating in a good outcome, in an effect that is in alignment with what I desire for the good of all. And so this is what it means. Prayer is its own answer. Ryan, go ahead.
All right, so I have Jeff, who's on here with us. Jeff, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
How did you know that this wasn't Allison?
I'm following you, Allison / Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
This is Allison's father.
All right.
Hi, Jeff. And I hear Karen in the background, too.
Yeah, she's here too. So the operative word is awareness. The awareness seems to me as though it is the absolute central idea here, because awareness is the only thing that allows the vigilance to constantly remind us of our ability to completely make our lives in the direction of this perfection that we choose, that we call the one. And the awareness piece is really a complex thing, because we're always looking for ways to make our lives easier. There's nothing easy about constant awareness.
That is a mouthful that you just said right now.
So I'll stop with that mouthful, but I love the fact that in prayer, I have to be able to be present to the moment in which I choose to change through intention my conditions.
Yes.
But I also have to be present to the moment which those conditions change.
Yes.
And so it's being in two places at once,
yes.
which of course we don't fully understand, but we know it exists.
Yes.
It happens.
Yes. Beautiful. And we have to be aware of any time that we slip into the belief or the illusion that what is outside of us is separate from us. Because then we all of a sudden think that we're coercing something, and that we're pushing something, and that we're doing something to make something happen, right? And so everything that you've said, Jeff, is so important. And our awareness of this unity. Now, this does not imply that the physical universe is an illusion, or that it is unreal, or that it is simply a mirror image with no substance to it. No, it is spirit in form. It is spirit as substance made in form. And so in that sense, it is something that we can manipulate and work on and work with and be engaged with, right? And that awareness, yeah, that you've said something really important. And you're right, awareness is a hugely complex thing. So much of our awareness is actually contributed, no, that's not the word I want. So much of our awareness is based on our physical senses. Right, I'm aware of the flower, and I'm aware of you guys being out there and the sounds, and I'm aware of what's going on in here, and I'm aware of sitting on the chair and how I feel in my body and all of those kinds of things. And all of that awareness comes to me through my physical senses. But my intuition is my awareness that you're actually out there, that you're actually here with me and listening and reading and talking and being a part of this moment together. Beautiful, Jeff. Thank you. That was really beautiful. I really appreciate that comment. All right, Ryan, did you have somebody else you wanted to bring in?
Well, actually, we just had a comment, and so I want to throw this at you and see how you react.
Oh, great. Okay.
So, today is a special day.
Yes.
And so they wanted to understand, what does this all have to do with Easter?
What does this all have to do with Easter? Well, you're going to see some conversation around all of that in our beautiful Easter celebration that starts at 10:30. And I think you'll just really, hopefully, just be loved up and inspired. So what this has to do with Easter? Well, let's stop and think about Easter, right? Easter, we celebrate the resurrection in the Christian tradition. In the ancient European indigenous traditions, we celebrated the beginning of the coming of spring. In both cases, we have birth, we have life after what appears to be death, after what appears to be no life, right? Winter, where everything goes dormant. And everything is gestating, and then spring, and new life emerges. And let's ask ourselves, do you ever question that life is going to emerge in spring? Don't you go outside and go, wow, there are the leaves. It's great. The leaves are coming onto the trees. The flowers are starting to bloom. We don't think anything of it, do we? We are utterly unsurprised that it's spring. I mean, we might say, oh, wow, it's cold today, or it's hot today, or the flowers are early, or they're a little late, or that one bulb didn't bloom. But by and large, we have no question that spring is coming and that spring is here. Easter, fundamentally, originally, was that celebration, that is something that happens. It is something that can be counted on. It is something that is celebrated, and it's a relief. It's a relief to know that after the stillness and seeming barrenness of winter, new life emerges. Spring happens. And if we think about the indigenous traditions and people in that time, hunter-gatherers, farmers, especially farmers, and the whole agricultural revolution, and years and tens of thousands of years of husbanding animals, right? The mating happened in the winter, in the fall, in the rut, with the deer and the cows and whomever else, wild or domesticated. Nothing over the winter, and a swelling belly. And spring, the lambs are born, the calves are born, the fawns are born. Do you see? There's something about that. That is one of the most perfect representations of the law of cause and effect and the impact of the space-time continuum. Do you see, when the impregnation happens, there is going to be a baby. But that has to grow, that law of growth. And the effect of the baby, whatever kind of baby it is, from whatever species it is, that baby pre-existed in the cause. Do you see? So the same thing is true when we think about the Christian tradition and the miracle stories of Jesus and the ability that he had to speak his word and manifest, right? And how extraordinary it is to be so convinced of the universal laws that, what did he say? He said thank you before he spoke his word. That would be like saying thank you for the lamb that's going to be born in the spring as I watch my sheep in the fall rut. That would be, right? And that's what we do. Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so grateful that we're going to have, and thank you for all my bulbs and flowers, and we cut them down in the fall, let them go dormant. Thank you. I can't wait to see what you're going to look like in the spring. Do you see? There's no question. There's no surprise. This is what it means when we say the cause and effect are one. And they're both part of the oneness. Now, Ernest Holmes is very confusing because he uses the term spirit to mean all of it, spirit, soul, and body, and to mean that portion of the infinite reality that we think of as causal, as the impulse, as the setting of intention, and the movement that initiates the creative process, right? So it's a little confusing that he tends to use that term interchangeably. So when we say God, universal spirit, we actually mean all of it. So God and God and God and God and God and God, spirit and spirit and spirit and spirit and spirit, universal spirit, but with different modalities. Is that a good word? Different modalities, different, well, ultimately different frequencies, different vibrational rates that allow us to Thomas Troward uses the term condense. We condense the absolute, undifferentiated potential. We condense it into form so we can play with it, right? It's not like we've taken matter and we've thrown a lightning bolt. We've taken spirit and we've thrown a lightning bolt of consciousness at soup, and somehow the soup now has manifested something. Do you see? Which is, I think, often what we think what's happening in prayer, in spiritual mind treatment. No, we're actually creating out of the very fabric of the universe, we're creating new condensations of spirit in form. Not into form like it's separate, but in form, as the out effect. And that's what we're doing in our prayer, in our spiritual mind treatment. We are seeing that happen in our mind's eye, in our imagination, in our ability to understand that this is what's going on, in our ability to recognize it, and then to say, yeah, that's what I want to do about this situation. And truthfully, it could be as easy as pulling out an ice cube tray and sticking it under the water faucet and putting it in the freezer. Unless the freezer is broken, we are going to have ice cubes. It's just that simple. We are going to have ice cubes. And of course, anytime we use this kind of analogy, it breaks down, because you can ask, well, what if the refrigerator's broken? What if it's not cold enough? What if it's blah, 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 right? And so, of course, we realize that any physical analogy is going to break down and is going to have some finite human characteristics, but we can use those analogies to get a hold of the fact that we don't question that we're going to have an ice cube. And nothing has to be coerced. We use the laws of water and freezing. We use the laws of liquidity, water, and temperature, and we move from a liquid to a solid. And then the solid we can put into our drink and make it cold. Do you see? We don't question the process. We have seen it over and over and over and over again. So we know this is how it works. And this is what we want to do with our spiritual mind treatments. We want to use them. We want to use them for all kinds of things so that we begin to see that when we use them, we do actually have an outpicturing. We do actually have a demonstration. And this is often why when we talk about prayer and spiritual mind treatment, we end up talking about physical manifestations, like a physical something that you can manifest, partly because, well, it's a little easier to talk about and get a hold of, but this is also the way we show ourselves that the process works. And so we start out with little things, with physical manifestations, and we can point to it and say, look, there, that manifested. Oh, that demonstrated. Oh, that happened. And we are building our belief not in any one particular end result, but we are building our belief in the process. Going back to Connie's question, our belief in the process, so that when it's difficult, we get a diagnosis, or we lose our job because of a pandemic, or the stock market crashes, or the finances change, or I get anxious and afraid, or I feel disconnected from the infinite, and I wonder, am I ever going to feel connected again? Do you see, in the really difficult, gut-wrenching moments, because we've built up our belief in the process, we bring that process back out again and we work ourselves through it because we know that the effect and the cause, when we can shift the cause in our consciousness, the effect is assured. And we don't have to know how it's going to work out, right? That's the law's job. It is the universal law's job to figure out how it's going to work out. Our job is to build the belief. And I will say, every once in a while it surprises me. I will say sometimes I've had people say, well, I didn't want to use up my treatments on that. What? What do you mean? This is an inexhaustible, this is a law. It's a law like mathematics. Mathematics is one of my favorite examples. It's a law of mathematics. So I could say to you, I'm sorry, you can't use your calculator and you can't figure out whether or not you want to buy that thing at the grocery store because I need the law, and if you use it, you're going to use it up, and I need it too. Or saying to ourselves, well, I can use the law to balance my checkbook because that's important. I can do the math, but I can't do the math to decide whether or not I'm going to use 6 tomatoes or 8 based on the weight of whatever I'm doing. Do you see how nonsensical that is? It's like, how can the law of mathematics be used up? Doesn't matter how many people use it in how many different ways for how many different purposes, all at exactly the same time. That's what it means to be in the intangible absolute reality. The laws of mathematics are 100% fully present all the time, everywhere, cannot be used up, cannot be, and it doesn't matter whether you're adding 2 plus 2 or whether you're using the mathematics to send somebody to the moon. Doesn't matter how complex or to decide or to try to figure out quantum computing. This is why we stress in our prayer work that we are using laws of the creative process. They're the very laws that are the way in which the universe manifests the universe. We're not in charge of that, thank God, right? We'd probably, I don't know what a good job we would do. We're in charge of our earth, and it's questionable whether we're doing a good job or not. And But what we are is we're co-creating that in our own lives. We are now able to see and use the laws in our own lives. All right, Ryan.
So in this law of cause and effect, can it become residual? Like, meaning, can we take maybe something that we did in a previous life, or does the things that we're doing in this life transcend and follow us energetically?
That is a great question. That is a great question. And so, as in any law, once a cause has been set in motion, the effect is going to happen unless a new cause is set in motion, right? And so this is where the science of mind differs from a popular understanding of karma, a law of karma. And this idea that inexorably, no matter what you do in any given moment, whatever you've done in the past, whatever cause you've set in motion in the past, is you are going to feel the effect of it. And this, from a science of mind point of view, is fundamentally not true. Again, take basic laws of the universe. Let's take the law of inertia. That which is in motion tends to stay in motion, and that which is in rest tends to stay at rest, right? So imagine all the balls on a billiard table, and you hit the cue ball, and the balls go in the direction, in the trajectory that is appropriate for how they've been hit, unless somebody takes a second cue ball and shortly after the first cue ball is hit, decides to hit a second cue ball and starts to send the balls in a different direction. Do you see? A new cause has been set in motion. And so this is what is so awesome about the fact that we are not just creations of life. We are life waking up to the fact of these universal principles and laws, and that we can use them. And so we're not victims of our past, thank God, or we would never get out of well, I don't know about you, but I don't even have to think about past lifetimes. I can just think about my 20s, my teens and my 20s, and if I were still having to play all of that out and suffering all the consequences of all those crazy decisions and all those crazy ideas that I had about life and about what a victim I was, and I would still be doing all of that. But this goes back to the question about habits, right? Our job is to set new causes in motion and to recognize that old causes that we've set in motion, whether in this lifetime or in a past lifetime, are not having the effect that we actually desire. We're not having the experience of the life that we desire, that we want, that is a meaningful, love-filled, joy-filled, contributing life. And so this is what the law does. It's not punishment, it's just the consequence of the outpicturing. And the good news is if we don't like it, we can set a new cause in motion. We interrupt the pattern, we interrupt the direction of that habit, and we set it in a new direction. Now, this is where the challenge with habits come in, is because a habit means we keep setting the old one in motion over and over and over and over and over again. So what does that mean? We have to set the new one in motion over and over and over again until a new habit is created and the old one atrophies for lack of use. Ryan, did you have another comment for me?
Yeah, actually, I have Shauna. So Shauna, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question or comment?
Blessed Easter, Dr. Petra.
Hi, Shauna. Happy Easter to you, too.
I think you have helped shift my lens just a little bit in a way that helps me understand. So I just want to make sure I hear it.
Uh-oh, I think we lost you.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. Good.
Okay. So what I heard you say is what is more important about my belief is the belief in the law and the process. So my belief that God is good and wishes the highest good for me at all times, and that co-creation with him is limitless and infinite. Believing in that law and that process and my oneness with the divine is more important than how good my imagination and faith in the effect is. So that, and my belief that when I plant the cause or the seed and release it, it is instantaneously done, even though I may not see the effect for a while. That's more important than believing that I got the outpicturing right. Is that correct?
I would say you have that 100% correct. And I would take that little snippet, we should take that little recording of that little snippet, Shauna, and just pull that out. That was a brilliant restatement.
So it is tremendously encouraging to me, because I think where I sometimes get discouraged in the whole process is as I wait for the cause effect to show up in time and place, and I start questioning, did I plant it deep enough? Did I imagine it truly? Have I changed enough that it won't show up perfectly? And maybe you have helped me release the anxiety about that, and I thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you, and thanks for taking it in the way that you have taken it in. It's really so profoundly important that we shift into this idea that we are engaged in this process all the time. And it's always happening because we are one with the infinite. And so this is why in the science of mind we stress focusing on the qualities of the experience we want to have and the alignment with how life is seeking to unfold within us. And then the deep conviction in the process, because sometimes we can't imagine the outcome in full orbed, or the truth is there's lots of different ways it might show itself, and all of them would be lovely demonstrations, and we can allow this organic unfolding. We don't, when you plant a seed, you don't actually know what the full orbed tree is going to look like. You don't know exactly where each limb is going to be, and sometimes limbs are in the wrong place and you have to prune them. This doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the tree. It just means, oh wait, that limb is growing into the fence. We need to prune that out. And the tree keeps growing and it's completely happy and beautiful. It's really, really, really lovely. And so I want to go down here. I want to follow up, Shauna, on what you're saying here. This is further down on this page 153. So we learn to go deeply within ourselves and speak as though there were a presence there that knows. And we should take the time to unearth this hidden cause, to penetrate the inner chamber of consciousness. It is most worthwhile to commune with spirit, to sense and feel it. The approach to spirit is direct. It is through our own consciousness. And do you see, this spending time with this deep communing, we are communing with both our experience of oneness, not just a presence that is outside of ourselves, but the fact that the presence that is outside of us and the presence that is inside of us is actually the same presence. And we commune with our contemplation of the universe and how it works and these laws and principles, and when we see them working and all the ways in which we can show ourselves in nature or in our own lives. And we commune with the sense of the qualities of love and peace, and all of this becomes that inner conviction that when we are not feeling those things because there's something either that has happened or something that we want to create, that we know what is the truth. We know who we are, we know what's happening, and we can deliberately engage in that process. And that to me is such a, well, it brings me not only comfort, but it gives me a place to stand, a grounded place to stand when things happen and all of a sudden I start wobbling. Or I get caught in the swirl of the human condition and the drama and the trauma and the stuff that's going on, right? And then I have to work my way back to, what do I believe? What do I believe is going on here? What do I believe is really true about the nature of reality and the nature of all these people that are involved in it and the nature of how it's unfolding and what's really going on? And then I'm starting to set cause in motion. I see that good comes of this. I know that somehow this all works out. I truly believe that the trajectory of life is for good. And I am drawing on love, and I'm seeing love out picturing in this situation. And do you see, I'm bringing all of that forward in a profound way that allows me to be aware of it. Jeff, I loved your comment, awareness. I become conscious of it. And as I build that in my consciousness, that is the new cause. And I may not know what the actual effect is going to look like in form. Now, let's be clear. If you have a form in mind that you want to demonstrate, for God's sakes, go for it. I demonstrated a beautiful blue BMW convertible because, by God, I wanted it. Okay? I also recognize that the blue convertible BMW is not going to make me happy. It's just going to be fun to drive around for a while, right? And so, yes, if there's a specific job you want, or you want to have your book published, or you want to have a beautiful relationship, or you want to sit on your cushion and really experience inner peace, of course, you can be very specific. And there's no problem with being specific. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing limiting about it. The universe has no opinion about that. So yes, of course, if you have something very specific, go for it. But something very specific is not required in terms of the form. What's required is the experience that we are seeking to experience and express. And often that doesn't have a form. And we can only imagine little bits and pieces of it. Like, oh, it might feel like that, and it might look like that, and I'm not really sure how that's going to be. But I know that if I focus on it, do my spiritual work, do my spiritual mind treatment, set the cause in motion, somewhere, somehow, this effect must manifest. And I might be pleasantly surprised in the miraculous way it shows up. All right, Ryan, I'll check in with you.
So this question has been popping up as well, too. Can we inadvertently trip ourselves up? So I'll use the analogy you were using of the BMW. So I go down to the lot and I say, I want a blue BMW, and then there's not a blue BMW. So I say, well, there's no blue BMW, so I'm never going to get a blue BMW. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And of course we can trip ourselves up, right? It's called doubt. It's called doubt. And this is why we talk about faith. I prefer the word trust. I don't think we're having faith in something that is going to somehow favor us. I have trust in the laws. And so that lot didn't have a blue BMW. That doesn't mean there isn't one that doesn't have my name on it. And if the universe has to rearrange itself for a blue BMW to show up in some form or fashion that I can find or see, then it's going to do that. Or I might realize as I'm wandering around in a lot that I see a yellow VW convertible bug, which I've always wanted, and I think, oh my God, I'm going to buy that instead. I can do that too. I can do that too. If it feels as though it is the outpicturing of my manifestation, I can also go to the lot, go to the second, third, and fourth lot, find a blue BMW convertible that I like. it seems to be the answer to my demonstration. It's a little older than I wanted, yeah, but I'm going to buy it because it's the answer to my demonstration. And I drive it around for a few weeks and I think, yeah, this isn't really what I wanted. Okay, so I can sell it and I can decide, what is it I do want? What is it that I thought this blue BMW was going to bring me that it is not? And I can ferret that out and go, well, I really love a convertible, and I really love, I really love having reliable transportation, but whatever, for whatever reason, maybe it's too expensive, or whatever. It's too old, or something's not. This isn't it. We get to change our mind just because we've demonstrated it. Well, Ernest Holmes says this great thing. He says this really great thing. He says, the problem is that we tend to use our spiritual mind treatments for two things, long life and infinite, long life, and I can't remember the exact word he says, but it basically paraphrasing, and a lot of money. The two things that we don't know what to do with. And so part of the process is that our choices get educated. And so we manifest stuff and then we learn, and this goes back to that question about setting a new cause in motion. Just because I thought this job or having this, this kind of a home, or I thought meditating for 30 minutes every day was going to bring me inner peace, and I realize it doesn't because I still have all these old habits hanging around that I haven't dealt with. Do you see? I can set a new cause in motion at any time. I can change my mind. I can change my focus. I can look for the quality of life experience that I've been trying to manifest. I can begin to question, maybe I wanted that BMW because I thought it would give me a status, or because, I don't know, because somebody thought I should have it, and I bought into it, right? How many times we buy into what our parents thought we should do, or we like, I'm not going to do that, which is basically the same. And so we get to, this is our Play-Doh, this is our sandbox, and I think we don't give ourselves permission to go, well, I thought that's what I wanted, but now I see it's not what I wanted. And we get to set a new cause in motion. Ryan, I saw that there might be something else.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and Jeff, do you want to just hit the unmute button and ask your question or leave your comment?
Yeah, having grown up as a cradle Catholic, the only spiritual truth I knew growing up was learning about Jesus Christ, the Catholic tradition, the Catholic interpretation of the New Testament, the Catholic meaning of Easter, et cetera, et cetera. My whole life was set up within this perspective, this tradition, this understanding of what Easter is about,
right,
and how that fits my paradigm of life. And that's just the Catholic tradition. As I began to study other traditions, the Muslims have their belief systems, their holy book that preserves and teaches their beliefs, their way of life, their spiritual paradigm, etc. Same is true for all the religions, Indian, Jewish, Hindu, as well as the science of mind. So I was wondering if you could provide some context and perspective why so many spiritual traditions seem to have their own version of truth about God that they have taught and followed for centuries and defended as the right one, the real truth about God, some to the extent that if you don't believe what we believe, your soul is doomed to eternal punishment. But if I look at God as infinite and undefinable and beyond the capacity of the human mind to comprehend, does this help to explain so many attempts of religions over the millennia to establish theologies and religious doctrines that try to establish rigid claims about a deity that, by its definition, is undefinable and limitless? Easter as a Catholic tradition is the most, as a Catholic tradition, is the most solemn of all holy days, and yet in other faiths, this same day represents and celebrates something that's so different from so many other faith traditions. Can you explain this maybe from a science of mind perspective?
It's a great question, Jeff. Actually, I heard 3 or 4 different questions in there. So I don't know that I can answer all of them at all. And I'm not sure I cannot answer the question why people defend their religions to the point of making other people wrong and damning them to hell. I have no relationship to that. I don't understand it, and I certainly cannot explain why somebody does something. In the science of mind, we recognize that why is not necessarily a useful question. But I can answer the question, why are there, or at least attempt to look at this idea that there are so many different ways of explaining and exploring the infinite reality. And so I liken it to a mountain. I lived in Seattle for many, many, many years, and there's a beautiful mountain, Mount Rainier. It's absolutely gorgeous. And if you think of the one infinite as a mountain, most mountains have many different faces. Also in Switzerland, if we go to the valley that I always like to go to in Lauterbrunnen, there's a series of mountains, and the Eiger Mountain has a face that is considered one of the most difficult rock climbing faces in the world. And the Jungfrau has one of the largest glaciers in the world. And at the feet of these beautiful mountains are gorgeous forests and beautiful meadows and brooks and creeks. Now, and there's a beautiful valley that you can go paragliding in. Okay, so if I'm a paraglider and I run off the side of a mountain and I spend 3 or 4 hours gliding over the mountain and around the valley, I'm going to explain it to you from a certain point of view. I'm going to tell you about how beautiful it is to see the entire river in its glaciated color, and how amazing it is to feel the wind and to feel the currents of the air. If I'm a rock climber, I'm going to talk to you about the kinds of belaying equipment I'm going to need and the different routes that you can go up the rock wall. And I'm going to ask you, what's your level of competency and comfort? And I'm going to maybe suggest that you take this route or that route, because I've actually gone those routes before, and I know which ones might be in your at your level of confidence as a rock climber. If I'm a hiker, I'm going to tell you about the most beautiful hikes that are across the valley that are going to give you the best views of the mountains. And by the way, are going to have these amazing wildflowers. And you're going to want to sit in this place and that place just so that you can see this vista and enjoy being surrounded by the beautiful wildflowers. Now, who has the right description of the mountain or of the area? Nobody. Everybody has the description of the area from the particular vantage point and the particular way in which they're engaging with it. And so the science of mind, we understand that this is what's going on all the time. Every spiritual tradition is seeing a different face of the mountain based on a cultural and historical lineage that has hundreds, if not tens of thousands of years to grow in. Every culture has its own unique way of moving through time and having responses to all the things that are going on, and to then begin to describe that mountain from the particular vantage point. And so if you imagine it's an infinite mountain, I'm standing on this side of it and I'm seeing just this portion of it. Well, you might be standing on the back side seeing another portion of it, and you could be looking at a sheer rock face, and I could be looking at a glacier, and we would describe it completely differently, but we would be talking about the same mountain. And so in the science of mind, what we try to do is be less concerned about the forms, the dogmas, the doctrines, what you have to believe in, but more importantly, what are the golden threads among all faith traditions that seem to tease out some fundamental truths about the mountain? First of all, that it's infinite. Second of all, there is something about faith or trust or belief that seems incredibly important. Third of all, every faith tradition talks about the impulse of love as being fundamental to the infinite, right? These are some of the the basic golden threads, common threads, Aldous Huxley calls it the Perennial Philosophy, that allows us to see that while we're all seeing different sides of the mountain, there's something, first of all, there's something similar about how this overarching thing is being described, and there's something valuable that each viewpoint is bringing. Right? Buddhism brings us mindfulness, Hinduism brings us the law of cause and effect, Christianity brings us the incarnation. Every spiritual tradition adds something to the evolution of spirituality in the human consciousness. And as we grow in our ability to understand the universe and our ability to understand ourselves, we can see that over the millenniums, the understanding of the infinite has actually matured. And if we allow ourselves to mature with it and not get stuck in a particular viewpoint, we can see that it continues to grow. There are many Christian communities and theological exegesis of Christianity right now that are very similar to where New Thought is going, to where progressive Buddhism is going, because it is progressing. Ernest Holmes says, when we have a better understanding of humanity, we will have a bigger God. Our God grows, our understanding of the universe and the infinite grows as we grow in our understanding about ourselves and about what's going on. And why people stay stuck in it? Well, my answer to that, or my belief about that, is because it's familiar, it's secure, and it's something that we understand. And so maybe in the science of mind, we are no less guilty about that. We do try to stay open at the top, but we rest in the confidence of what it is that we know. So we keep finding our way. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate getting to spend this time with you. Please do join us at 10:30 for our Easter celebration. We will have Q&A afterwards. The practitioners will also be available in their room for individual one-on-one prayer. You get to go in your own breakout and have spiritual mind treatment, just as we've been talking about today. So have a beautiful morning. Bye for now.